To anyone out there still claiming there's no real difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, I just have to point this out. Right now, Donald Trump is wearing diapers, while Governor Gavin Newsom is busy handing them out to new mothers and fathers for free. That, in a nutshell, is the contrast between the Democratic and Republican parties today. Now, look, I'll criticize the Democratic Party just as much as anyone else. I'll be the first to call out the corporate ownership of too many people within the party. But let's be real for a second. It is night and day. On one side, you have whatever is going on with Trump, and on the other, you have Democratic leadership delivering things that people actually want. That is the fundamental difference. We are going to get into it all, but before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now that is exactly what's driving Donald Trump so crazy right now. I honestly cannot wait to dive into this. But it all starts with the context of how Gavin Newsom even got onto the subject of Donald Trump and his diapers. It began with a major announcement he made yesterday regarding what California is going to be doing to support families. This is great stuff. Let's take a look.
Defined universally in our city, our state, and our nation is the issue of affordability. This is what affordability looks like. It's not a slogan, it's a box. It's a box of diapers. It's addressing the essential and essential for any new parent, for any new family. And that essential is no longer affordable. Since the pandemic, we've seen the cost of diapers go up 45%. $1,000+ a year cost of diapers. You heard the statistics. 1 out of every 2 people, families cannot afford diapers. You hear the stories over and over again, and they need to be repeated over and over again. 1 out of 4 families skip meals to pay for a diaper. 1 out of 4 skip meals to pay for diapers.
That right there is the fundamental difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. And honestly, I believe this universal approach is a far superior way to handle government programs. It shouldn't be about, well, we're going to give a certain amount based on this specific income level, or if you're below this line in that particular community. No, that's not it. We should just stick to universality. That is what people actually understand, and more importantly, that is what people need. This means testing nonsense just doesn't work. It makes zero sense. It just creates a mountain of red tape and gets way too bureaucratic. Nobody wants to deal with that. Let's keep it clean. Let's keep it simple. Tax the rich. Freeze the rent, right? Be direct about it. Don't go out there and call affordability a scam like Donald Trump does. Actually provide real solutions to the problems people are facing. That's why I'm glad to see what Governor Newsom is doing here. But again, if we look at the other side of the spectrum, let's check in on Donald Trump and the latest news surrounding his diapers, especially following that recent interview that has Gavin Newsom talking about Trump's, well, his downstairs situation, to say the least.
What in the adult diaper bulge is happening here? I'm a physical therapist with a doctorate in my field and 14 years experience working in home health care treating geriatric patients who have many chronic health conditions, including incontinence and congestive heart failure. So, first of all, he looks absolutely awful. He looks like somebody inflated him before he sat down. Remember how they said he weighs like 220 pounds? That's not fucking true. There's a subterranean trenchway under here somewhere where his belt is supposed to be, if he's wearing one of those. But he's got more rolls than a bakery. Look at the degree of bulging on his hip. One explanation, of course, is an adult diaper that is not fresh. We know he has a long history of bowel incontinence, as documented by Noel Casler, who worked on The Apprentice, whom to this day has still never been sued by Trump for defamation, because it's fucking true. Another explanation is that he is wearing some sort of padding underneath his entire jacket and pants to hide him wearing some sort of medical device, maybe a cutting-edge LVAD device that is really small. If anybody in the world is going to get a device before it's to market, it's going to be this piece of shit. But thirdly, and this is something I only learned from being in the field as a therapist, People with congestive heart failure, like this guy, notice those ankles. As the disease progresses and gets worse, which it's going to because he's not compliant with anything, you start to retain fluid in your abdomen, not just your feet and ankles. Either way, the guy's really sick. I think he's living on 4 days of borrowed time since he should have either left the land of the living, been impeached, or they should have finished the invocation of the 25th Amendment. Thank you for your attention to this bloated matter.
There is definitely some medical maneuvering going on behind the scenes with Donald Trump. I know people have been speculating about things like a catheter bag or whatever else he might be carrying under those suits. And let's be honest, there are plenty of times where it looks exactly like he's wearing a diaper. This isn't just about conspiracy theories or wild guesses. The President of the United States is constantly applying makeup to his hands to hide bruises. He strategically positions objects and frames photos just so nobody can see his ankles or his cankles. Are you seriously telling me that I'm not allowed to suspect he's wearing a diaper? Donald Trump almost certainly has, will, and currently does wear a diaper. The fact that we even have to raise these questions about a sitting president is absolutely insane. I remember how the media obsessed over every tiny detail about Joe Biden. If he wore a pair of sneakers, it was front page news for days. But nobody ever had to ask if Biden was literally making a mess in his pants. Those are the kinds of questions we have to ask about Donald Trump, a man who, by the way, threatens nuclear genocide on a daily basis. I think that is a massive problem, which is why it's important to have a little bit of fun with it, at least if it brings some much needed attention to the situation. And that is exactly what Governor Newsom did right here. The Democratic account Fact Post News wrote, Governor Gavin Newsom has announced California will be the first state in the nation to provide free diapers to newborns. Families will receive 400 diapers when discharged from the hospital. Now, Governor Newsom's press account wrote, funny how we haven't heard a peep from all those pro-family and pro-life groups on this major announcement today. This, though, was not the only fun that Governor Gavin Newsom had, because someone commenting on the fact that he was giving away free diapers said, do you need the shipping address for the White House? And Newsom, taking a shot at Donald Trump and all these stories, wrote, we are looking into adult diapers. Adult diapers for dear leader. We're going to get the adult diapers and they're going to be so fantastic. So of course, Gavin's going to do a little trolling. He's going to have some fun with it. And I fully expect this will absolutely incense Donald Trump. Earlier today, and I'm not even going to show the photo because it's honestly just too gross and weird, Trump posted an AI-generated image of JB Pritzker. Now, if we're talking about who's running for president in 2028, which is actually how I want to wrap up this video, talking about some youth and the future, JB Pritzker has actually been dropping some serious weight lately. Now, I'm not usually the guy to comment on people's bodies. Whenever reporters ask Pritzker, are you on the sauce? Are you on Ozempic or Wegovy? Is it Weight Watchers? He just says he doesn't want to talk about it. Which is fine, it's his personal health. But the man looks good. Pritzker is looking sharp. And a lot of people suspect he's doing this because he's gearing up for a presidential run. But then Donald Trump posts this AI image of Pritzker eating greasy pizza with a massive fountain drink. And it's like, dude, have you looked in a mirror lately? You've got a massive McDonald's backside that you probably tripped over at your fake White House dinner. Is Donald Trump really going to be the one calling people fat? Has Donald Trump seen Donald Trump? He is obscenely out of shape, yet he's the one attacking others. It reminds me of those old stories of royalty taking all the mirrors out of the palace because they couldn't stand their own reflection. When are we going to get that reporting? When are we going to hear that all the mirrors in the residence are gone? Because we are reaching that point. Clearly, he's not looking at himself if he thinks he can joke about JB Pritzker's weight while he's inhaling sandwich after sandwich. Look, I'm not typically one to turn down a quarter pounder, but I'm also not a fascist. We save the body positivity for people who aren't, total pieces of garbage. But again, this is our president. Cognitive decline, physical decline, out of shape, attacking everyone else, and potentially wearing a diaper. And does the mainstream media address any of this? No. Now you might say, Liam, you're just speculating about the diaper. Look, I'm not asking Anderson Cooper to open his show by saying, speculation is growing that Trump made a mess in his pants. I'm not asking for that. But I am asking for the mainstream press to at least acknowledge that Donald Trump is falling apart right before our eyes. Cognitively and physically, he is declining. I'd like more attention paid to the makeup on his hands, covering up bruises that we still have no explanation for. This has been a year-long story with zero updates. Is it tremors? Is it medicine? Is it too much aspirin? Nobody wants to tell us anything. I find it preposterous that the mainstream media doesn't want to dive into that story even a little bit. This is why I cannot wait for us to have a young, capable Democratic president again. And there are plenty of them who are going to be running. AOC made some news yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but if you didn't, you're going to want to check it out. That's what we do on this show. We cover the real news. AOC talked about her future in a 3-minute clip, and I think it's incredibly interesting. Let's get into it.
There are a lot of people who would like you to run for president in 2028. Apparently, some of them are here. And there are people who, there are others who would like you to run for the United States Senate. Senator Schumer's up in 2028. I don't know. It sounded like even more. Should we do it?
Move to New York or to other parts of the country?
How many would like AOC to stay in Congress? See, they want you to make a move.
Yeah.
What say you about all of this?
You know, it's funny because in this op-ed that Jeff Bezos paid for in the Washington Post, there was this line that you had mentioned earlier about, well, as a potential 2028 contender, XYZ. And in the context of that, it was very clear this was a veiled threat, right? So the elite saying, if you want this job, you just stepped out of line. And we want you to know where the real power is. And it's in the modern day barons who own the Post and own the algorithms, and we'll make an example out of you. And what's funny about that is that they assume that my ambition is positional. They assume that my ambition is a title or a seat. And my ambition is way bigger than that. My ambition is to change this country. And presidents come and go, Senate, House seats, elected officials come and go, but single-payer health care is forever. A living wage is forever. Workers' rights are forever. Women's rights, all of that. And so, anyways, a finer point to your question is that when you aren't attached, right? When you haven't been like fantasizing about being this or that since the time you were 7 years old, it is tremendously liberating. Because I get to wake up every day and say, how am I going to meet the moment? And conditions change radically all the time. So I make my response less to an attachment to some positional, title or position, and working backwards from there. But I make decisions by waking up in the morning, looking out the window, and observing the conditions of this country. And saying, what move or what decision can I make today that is going to get us closer to that future, stronger, faster, better than yesterday?
Now, I have a lot of opinions on AOC. They are all mostly positive opinions of AOC. I think she should run for president. Now, that's not me saying that I think AOC is the only person who should be president. I certainly would love to see her become president. I love a progressive. We need a progressive president. There will be other progressives running in the race. Ro Khanna, Chris Van Hollen, John Ossoff. But I think that there's never been a more important time to have someone like AOC shifting the ideas of what we're talking about generally. I think that even more so than the impact of her winning would be substantial and important in a time in which the Democratic Party needs to be more progressive and needs to actually have real fighters and authentic individuals who come from their policy perspectives based on their worldview and not like what some consultant is whispering in their ear. So I think that AOC should run. And some people might say, okay, no, she needs to beat Chuck Schumer. There are other Democrats in New York who could run and unseat Chuck Schumer. And then if it doesn't work out for her in 2028, she can run against Kirsten Gillibrand, which would be just as great. Maybe even more important because Schumer's on his way out. We all know that. But Gillibrand, there's a lot for AOC to do. But I think it's important. I love her voice. I'd love to hear more of it. I feel like we don't see enough of AOC coming on the show. And we are going to continue to cover it all. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button and leave a like on this video. Donald Trump has a diaper because he's a cognitively declining old man, and the media should cover that. We will. Keep on fighting, y'all. Don't let them silence you.